This motherfucking.
Were Phil Hellmuth's actions last night during a WSOP main event stream over the line? That's what we're going to be jumping into tonight to take a look at, as well as discussing what should we expect from some of the industry leaders that play the game. To be honest with you guys, there were a lot of topics that I wanted to cover today. This included a racist comment that was made to Maurice Hawkins during a $1,500 side event at the WSOP. And I also wanted to go in and take a more in-depth look at a recent hand that Vanessa Selps played that's been causing a little bit of a stir on Twitter. But today we're going to talk about what happened last night with Phil Hellmuth. Now, if you guys haven't heard, we're going to jump in and take a look at the clip. But the cliff notes are, while another player is all in and another player has to make a big decision, Hellmuth couldn't really quite control himself. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happened during the all-in.
Well, 10-4 Trey with a couple of diamonds.
This worked out way better for him because he's definitely going to double through Kuzman now. You're going to see a C-bet here. Phil's going to call, and you're going to see a shove and probably call, and Phil's going to fold and be so mad.
Oh, not just the C-bet, but the bet and the fold. Min raise, 3-6.
All in. All in. This motherfucking fucking son. Fuck got away with murder all day against me. How the fuck does this?
Has Kuzman called yet?
No, Kuzman's done nothing. This is so wrong by Phil. This is where Phil deserves penalties. Like, you cannot talk in a multi-way pot, give away your weakness with the opponent still to act. It's so wrong that he gets away with stuff like this.
For those of you that don't understand exactly what's happening here, let me just break this down for you. So when Phil raises against Kuzman's flop bet, Phil is saying that he might have a very strong hand. This could include a hand like a set, maybe a hand like 4-3 suited, maybe even a hand like an overpair from time to time. So when Kuzman faces that raise and then Campbell jams, well, now a big part of this hand becomes, does Kuzman think that Phil will call if he decides to call as well? And the reason is because both Phil and Kuzman have very, very deep stacks. And in some ways, part of the small blind strategy should really leverage these guys against each other. If you jam, well, now they have to worry about facing off, and this is part of the reason why playing on a short stack can have some advantages. If you pick spots like these, where big stacks have to fight each other, well, then you might get an opportunity to get some folds you might not otherwise. Now, in this instance, it doesn't really matter because he has a good hand, he has the nut flush draw, but at the end of the day, when you're in a tournament, you really want folds. If people fold, you gain chips 100% of the time, and then you move farther in the tournament. If you get called, even if you're the favorite, you now risk busting, and because there's not a one-to-one chip value, that's not good for you. You want to survive longer. So it's really important when Campbell moves in here that Phil keeps his shit together so that Kuzman might consider Phil having to call behind and then laying a hand down. But Phil is actually being very selfish here because Phil knows he's not going to call the all-in, and so he's basically just telegraphing that in the hand by getting really pissed off and angry and saying a bunch of stuff, basically saying exactly what he has, which is kind of a middling hand that can't call, and giving away to Kuzman the fact that he's not going to call behind. This is really not cool to Campbell. And in fact, Campbell's equity with this move goes down because of these antics from Phil. Now, if Kuzman has a hand that's close to a call, he can call knowing that Phil's going to get out of the way. Now, an important caveat to this is maybe Phil could balance this by occasionally talking like this when he has a set, kind of a little bit of an angly behavior, but Phil's not doing that. He's basically just telegraphing his hand. And that's kind of a different conversation too. Is it okay to do this if sometimes you're strong? Probably not. You should just never do it, but it's a conversation nonetheless. Anyway, back to the hand though. In this situation now, Kuzman, knowing that Phil's going to fold, he can decide to maybe get in there with a little light call like King Deuce suited from wherever he opened this from, and he does decide to make the call. Let's go ahead and see the exciting conclusion to this hand.
Yeah, probably reflex more than anything there, but Campbell and Kuzman didn't say a word, and now Kuzman has made the call. And Hellmuth out of the way after mucking the sevens. Kuzman realizing he is in horrific shape.
The shoulders. Good luck, man. Good luck, Canby.
Ah, yeah, I'm gonna, man. I need a king.
Well, James Campbell, a professional firefighter, the 35-year-old from Hudson, Massachusetts. $750,000 in career tournament earnings. Gets slapped in the face by a black deuce on the turn. He does have a wheel draw to go with the nut flush draw. 16 outs just once.
What? One more juice.
In the river, the 6 of spades. In a very disappointing situation for James Campbell. Hashtag main event.
That's just such a brutal way to go out. I think Phil totally influenced the action there, and I think that Guzman never calls that Phil's behind.
Perfect combination. You raise every pot I trap.
A deuce on the turn is all she wrote for Campbell, and now the question becomes, what should happen to Phil here? And this is kind of what I wanted to drive this video towards, which is I feel like in the poker world, we give well-known players preferential treatment in a lot of situations that maybe they shouldn't receive. I think if this hand happened with a few random people, there would be a penalty because you hurt the value of the other player's buy-in by acting and essentially telegraphing your hand before it was your turn. But oh no, that's just Phil.
Is this fucking for real? How do these players, how are they even still in this tournament? It's just unbelievable. This kid probably won't last another hour. How do these players even last this long?
Phil Hellmuth all in.
I didn't raise. I'm calling you 3,800. I didn't mean to raise. See, if a club comes, I don't lose one nickel in this hand. Where are these cards coming from? It's like I just get cheated. I mean, hand after hand after hand. I feel like I'm a really great person. And I've raised $52 million for charity. I consider my friends love me.
Good times. This brings up some greater themes that I'm sure some people are going to get angry about me talking about, but I do want to talk about what it should be like for people who are well known to play a poker tournament. And I don't think you should get special privileges like hurting other players' buy-ins and not acting within the rules because you're a celebrity. First off, and I hate to break this to you, Phil Hellmuth, call the models back and tell them to go home. You're a poker player. You're not the goddamn Queen of England. And then second off, rules should be rules because it's how they're going to be played, not it's going to matter who you are. It's in the rules at the WSOP. You cannot talk about your hand in a three-way pot. It's in the rules. So why should it matter if it's Phil Hellmuth? It doesn't. A lot of people are unhappy about what went down here, frankly, because they should be, and have taken to social media to discuss the event. This includes a tweet from Luckbox 2018 TM saying, "Please consider giving Phil Hellmuth a retroactive penalty today. He didn't like Canby and gave away the weakness of his hand to allow Kuzmin to call his all-in lighter than normal. This behavior is far beyond what is acceptable and he's gotten enough warnings." Going on to say, this plays into Hellmuth's strategy in an unfair pattern we've seen for years. He doesn't like aggressive players after him, especially short stacks who could move in on him. This isn't an isolated accident. He gains a huge edge by influencing action to bust the third player. I think in this incident, he doesn't really gain too much by giving away his hand strength. Yes, Kuzma might call it a little bit wider, but again, we're in the early stages of a tournament. He doesn't gain too much from this happening. Sure, maybe it's one less guy that can jam light on him, which hurts his EV a little bit, but I don't think that's really the more important thing at play here. The most important thing is that Phil Hellmuth, when he goes on an emotional, rage-filled rant, should not be allowed to hurt other players' buy-ins because he's Phil Hellmuth. Campbell tweeted out after the incident saying, "I had some fun even though I got tortured all day in the WSOP main event. I busted in brutal fashion ace-9 of diamonds versus king-deuce of diamonds, turn black deuce. Phil Hellmuth, save your rant until after other players fold. That player would have not called without your antics." Again, this is all completely fair and frankly correct, and Phil Hellmuth took to Twitter to respond. Phil Hellmuth quote tweeted James Campbell and said, "I apologize for swearing," not getting the point. "It was a three-way pot and I shouldn't have lost it." Not getting the point. "It was the 15th time you moved all in on me." Definitely not getting the point. "And my emotions got the better of me. But you were never winning that hand. You snap moved all in, and I was never folding 7-7 on draw heavy board of 10-4-3. Here we can see Phil start to try and change the narrative of what's happening. It doesn't matter, you're getting called anyway, but that's not relevant to the point. The point is, if you influence other players to continue, well, then that changes the result of the hand. That is clear. You can't be like, oh, well, this could have happened or that was going to happen, so it doesn't matter. No, rules are still rules, and it should be the same for everyone. Phil, if you were all in and another player did that to you, you'd probably be livid, man. I've played with you at the table, and I know what you're like. So you shouldn't be able to do this to other people, and don't try and change the narrative by pretending like this is about swearing or the fact it didn't matter because you're getting called either way. Plus, I truly believe the Russian was calling you anyway, but my apology stands. My emotional behavior may be good television, but it's too much sometimes. This actually reminds me of a story, and we don't really tell stories much here on essentially Poker News, but I'm going to tell one today. When I was in middle school, a kid that I was hanging out with, he had a mechanical pencil, and he threw it at me. And the pencil landed in my leg, broke off, and I had a bunch of lead in my leg that I eventually had to get taken out of my leg. And I was in pain, and I looked at him and said, what the fuck? Why would you do this to me? And he said, sorry, man, I guess I just don't give myself enough credit for accuracy. This is essentially what Phil Hellmuth is doing here. He's saying, hey, man, it's good TV, but my apology stands. His apology, which, by the way, was not for influencing action. It was for swearing. He apologized for the swearing. Then Phil went on to do something that's pretty much classic Phil. He retweeted a bunch of people that were essentially arguing against him. And Phil does this quite often. He makes some points and then just retweets a bunch of random tweets to try and... I'm not really sure what he's actually doing. He retweeted tweets like, doesn't matter what you truly believe. Holy shit, you're a clown. Definitely retweet worthy. In the spirit of today's video, I'm going to retweet 10 random tweets about today's video. Doesn't even have to be positive. I might just retweet that shit anyway. Tweet at Doug Polk Poker. I'll retweet some of you guys. Hook me up, bruh. Hellmuth woke up this morning and took to social media to let everyone know what his thoughts were, which were, nursing my usual social media thrashing, reserved for when I do something wrong. A Poker Brat rant in a three-way hand. Still in bed with wifey, listening to 70s music, resting. I wish I wasn't so emotional at the tables. My chips are in play, being antied off, but I'll come in strong. That's right, viewers at home. Phil learned his lesson, and he's going to become a new man. He's going to kick that off by doing the exact same thing he did in all of the last tournaments. Then tweeting later that his chip stack went from 162 to 146. Worth it to refocus. That's right, Phil Hellmuth lost 10% of his stack by not being there, but gained some focus. Luckily, here at Poker News Productions, we have the latest tweet deciphering technology. Let's take another look at that tweet. Phil Hellmuth tweets, just arrived at the WSOP main event. Thought it restarted at noon. Just kidding. Showing up 1 hour late cost me $16K in chips. Worth it to get some attention. Please, please give me some attention. Hashtag I need some attention. Hashtag PH life, nice life, attention. We need to stop focusing on this. It's the goddamn media giving him attention and talking about these stories, which are why he does it to begin with. If we stopped talking about... Fuck, I'm the media. God damn it. Deeb also chimed in with a nice tweet. Phil, you're always floating there. Please stop with that logic. If you were calling, you would have not swore so much as usual. You used delusional logic after seeing his holding and the runoff. Very nice use of punctuation there. Admit you fucked up and deserve a penalty at the minimum. We've been hammering this subject for a while, so I want to shift it a little bit. And I want to talk about the way that as a community we seem to give a lot of forgiveness to the stars of poker that we wouldn't give to people that play at lower stakes and are lesser known. People want to have heroes and they want to be their fans. And because of that, they're okay with things happening if it's their favorite player and give them some leniency. And you know what? If they scam a couple people, what's the big deal? To be fair, though, I'm sure the Dur Challenge is going to resume any minute now. Any minute. In summary, the main thing I want to say, guys, is try to be objective when we look at what people's actions are and treat them for what they mean and what they should mean. If Phil Hellmuth had never done this before, he should probably get a warning. But Phil has done this time and time again. And because of that, at some point, he has to get a penalty because it's the only way to maintain the integrity of the rules of our game. If they're going to be rules, we should enforce them, or else they shouldn't be rules. It shouldn't just be, okay, let's decide based on who did it. That's going to do it here for me. I've been streaming a lot of video games over on Twitch lately. If you want to come check it out, I'll put a link in the description below.